Yeah, continuing our push and problem focus. Okay. Okay, we'll need less bauxite for aluminum for a refinery. I guess that's worth 65 days of research. We are hopefully getting another one here, another research gain. Don't know what it's going to be, generic or what, but it'll probably be something useful. Oh, wait a minute. We can maybe see. Oh, they've already got reinforcements in, but they're in bad shape. Well, we'll go ahead with that. And the labor front, very good. KDF wagon will get me 3 civilian factories. That is what we want to do. 30 days. All right. And our newest one, okay, is industry. Great. Radios. Reception detect air accident chance. Let's do that. Get more out of our current production capabilities. Well, just get in and take this. Oh, now they've already got reinforcements in. Coming in, International Brigade. Weren't they the ones we kicked out a short while ago? See, this is the sort of in and out that I'm talking about. All right. Okay, artillery production capacity, engine production capacity. Well, what I think I will do is start building Panzer IVs of ships. Go. Or resources. I don't know. Maybe another engine factory would be useful at this time. Not really sure, but let's go for it. And I guess we can go for one more power factory here. I'm not sure how much it's needed, quite honestly, but we'll see. They've even cut off these guys over here. Dang. Tank designs. Come on, hold out, hold out. We got the position. Finally got you. You wiped out those guys. We have been doing fairly well in surrounding the city of Zaragoza. And they pushed us all out. So we're going to turn around and counterattack because we're Germans and that's what Germans do. And there are Spanish forces already in there. Okay, we're defending. How many tanks do we have here? We have a captured motorcycle. Okay, we have some Panzer IIs in there. Improved machine tools, very good. That one. Oh, we could do that max factories and state output, bomb damage, vulnerability reduced. Well, we're at 100% stability. That's a hell of a lot better than we did last time. Naval bomber, flying boat, prototypes. Done. Nice and early. Let's go to the HE 111F. ADF wagon. Okay. So we could establish Volkswagen, which, well, just starting to build an engine factory. I guess 2 more engine factories there. 28 days. Well, ooh. What might be better is Anschluss. Cannot be canceled manually. Let's take a quick look at Austria right now. What does... Can we open logistics here? No. Unknown focus. Okay. Doesn't even tell us enough right here to know what. If I knew it was like doing a particularly, good one for us, improving industrial infrastructure, this kind of thing here, I would let it maybe finish out. But I'm guessing it may not be, so don't know what it programmed to do. So let's do Anschluss. 42 days. Allied anger will increase. It'll go up to 9, it looks like. Yeah, let's do this. Yeah, it's probably better than getting some of the others. Naval bombers. We have these Heinkels. So we can come in here. Okay, we have 2 things here. Well, okay. Again, I know I've talked about this a lot. The Bloomberg-Fritsch affair. That's Bloomberg. That's Fritsch. That's Gerd von Rundstedt. See, I remembered. For some reason, I blank on names. He was okay. I'm not going to go into it too deep here. Going back to the days of Prussia and Frederick the Great. Frederick the Great is king in Prussia, and basically eventually becomes king of Prussia or whatever sort of technical terms. He has a civil government under him, and that's one branch, and he has a military government under him, and that's the other branch. And he obviously is a soldier king, not a king who also sort of kind of, once in a while shows up on the battlefield. He is a soldier king. So sometimes Prussia is described as a state there to support an army. It's maybe not quite that, but it's nearly that. And it's a sort of separate branch. Well, there isn't the idea of a a civil, a civilian minister of defense or minister of war in Prussia, or when it later becomes the German Empire. It's straight under the Kaiser. So the civil government, sort of as it were, does not really support or does not control the military. Now, under the Kaiser, and then later under the president Hindenburg, up until what is it, 34 when he dies. He's there, and so he's obviously a former general being elected as president, and so yeah, in that sense, the civil government does sort of control the military, but the head of the military is basically a serving general. There is not the idea of civilian oversight, shall we say, really, when it comes to military affairs. Sort of broken out and separate. And so he is a holdover from when Hindenburg was president, and he is a loyal German, a loyal militarist, wants a strong army, but he is not loyal to Hitler very much so. Not saying I don't know what he thought of him. I know they took their oaths serious when they swore allegiance to Adolf Hitler, the Führer. But still, Hitler worries about his power within the military. Fritsch is a bit younger, I believe, and very much seen as a very popular follow-on to Bloomberg if Bloomberg retires or dies or whatever. So Hitler wants to get rid of these 2 people, in essence, get rid of Bloomberg's position and sort of put himself in charge of it. And so they go about besmirching the honor of these two men in a blackmailing way. Just very shortly, a week or two after Hitler attends Bloomberg's um, wedding, it is found out that for, I believe, a brief period of time, his much younger wife had been a prostitute during Weimar Germany, a registered prostitute. And Fritsch, well, he did nothing absolutely wrong or disgraceful or any such thing, but somebody with his same first and last name, at least, did. And if you really look into it, it's clearly not him, as far as everyone says. But somebody did get arrested for doing something, and it's threatened to be released. And of course, although the documents are real, he's going to be smeared by them, though they're not referring to him. And he's not, and he knows that under this National Socialist regime, there is not the internet, the interwebs, or opposition newspapers at this point that would come out and defend him and try to prove that this, the person who was arrested was not. So I guess if you look at some of the details of the description of the person, age or height or whatever, it just is not him. But that won't necessarily matter. So he bows out too, and which allows basically let's see, will not be available. Yeah, Bloomberg will not be available, and Fritsch will not be available. Point Walter von Brauchitsch in charge of the military. So that's that. So everyone gets that. Now, the dismissal of Constantine, response to the reservations expressed at the Horseback Memorandum, Hitler tightens his control of military and foreign policy apparatus, removing those who were out of touch with his policy. Neurath was sacked as foreign minister. During the Bloomberg Fritsch affair, he felt his office was marginalized and was not in favor with Hitler's aggressive war plans because he felt Germany needed more time to rearm, which were detailed in the Horseback Memorandum. He was succeeded by Joachim von Ribbentrop, but remained in the government as minister without portfolio to allay concerns that his removal would have caused internationally, because he was actually rather popular internationally, other diplomats and governments. He was also named president of the Privy Cabinet Council, a purported super cabinet to advise Hitler on foreign affairs. Never really happened. I mean, he was named it, but there was never really that thing. On paper, it appeared had been promoted. However, this body only exists. Yeah, on paper. See, I knew that. Now that doesn't totally put Constantine von Rath out of favor. He is later put in charge of Bohemia and Moravia. Again, both internally and external reasons for doing that. Now, throughout the period, of National Socialist control in Germany, and I want to say this again, and I know people, a lot of historical revisionists and other things, fascism and National Socialism are two different ideologies, people. They're both totalitarian ideologies, yes. They both have a lot of socialism in both of them. They're not leveling socialism, as in everybody equal, everybody trying to bring everybody down. They are hierarchical socialist governments, or political ideologies, I should say, meaning there can be some rich people, and there can be some upper middle class type people, and then there can be the working class. I don't want to call them the poor. I want to call them the working class. And that there shouldn't be a poor in either of those two systems. There will be a working class, but there won't be the poor. So there will be sort of like, the elites, the bourgeoisie, middle class, sort of the middle owning class. The guy who owns a store. like a single store or 4 stores or something, not necessarily rich. I mean, somebody who owns 4, stores somewhere, and I'm not talking like big department stores, I'm just talking, medium-sized store, may have a lot of money on paper or assets on paper, the inventory of the stock, but hey, he may be leasing the property. He may have a lot of the stock in the store that he hasn't paid for yet, paid for the idea when it's sold. And so he doesn't necessarily, isn't like rich in that he has lots of money. It's just, he's a owner of a business and not, monetary wealth rich, and that he has lots of money. It's just ownership class or something, you'll say, sort of. So the bourgeoisie and then the working class, and that's what they both have those in common. National Socialism, and we could just go talk about the merchants, yes, merchant lads, but merchants, or could be that, or could be business owner in the sense that provide a service or a small manufacturing business, or like a repair shop, for cars or something like that, but an ownership kind of class. And yeah, maybe, back then, have $50,000 or something, back then, which would be a lot of money, worth of property or more. He might have a nice house, nice business somewhere, drives a nice car, but he doesn't necessarily have a lot of money. So that's sort of dividing up society, where of course with communism as an extreme, but socialism with the ownership of the means of production, these all have ultimately ownership within fascism, within National Socialism, within socialism, and within communism, all ultimately have the means of production owned by the people collectively. Fascism and National Socialism are much more willing with the idea of having smaller segments, could be an individual, could be people owning stock, a lot of people owning stock in companies. Owning it, you might say, well, that isn't owning the means of production. Well, there is the basic understanding of the right of the state to take it away from you if you're misusing it, okay? So, if you're profiteering too much or whatever, there's that sort of idea. National Socialism, and not to get too hung up on labels, because running around at this period of time, there are parties calling themselves fascist and calling themselves National Socialism, and they have different ideologies and different practices. Okay, so just because say a party up in Sweden uses the term National Socialism does not mean that they align with Hitler's National Socialism. And Hitler's National Socialism includes a religious aspect that fascism does not. Okay? And by religion, I mean an esoteric explanation of why things are the way they are. God created the earth, or something, within Christianity and Islam and whatnot. Okay, that kind of thing. Hitler's belief system, and through the upper levels of Constantine van Rath is not one of them, but the inner circle, none of them are Christians. A lot of them are, esoteric believers and things. So there is that aspect where fascism doesn't go anywhere near any of that. It's a political ideology, and fascism battles with the Catholic Church over control of education, and ends up letting the younger education, sort of primary school or elementary school, however you want to say it, to remain in the hands of the church in Italy. Higher levels, the government gets to take it over. But fascism never, and particularly in Italy, but also in other countries, not always Catholic countries, but there's a lot of it in Catholic countries, never gets into trying to explain how, what is the reason, whether it's, you know, um, Darwinism and just sort of, science national, or whether there's a God or whatever. It doesn't touch on that, where Hitler's National Socialism very much touches on the religious aspects. And part of the religious aspects are racial. You have to understand that with that. And it's not just racial politics, it's race is part of that religious belief system. But what is fundamentally different between, as far as I know. Hey Lawless, how you doing? I'm doing well. As far as I understand it, the main economic philosophical difference between National Socialism under Germany at this time and fascism in Italy is fascism is looking for a planned economy, a centralized planned economy, to figure out, okay, we need, I don't know, 1 million pairs of shoes per year in Italy to be made. And then go, okay, we have, and it's very syndicalist. This is, you get syndicalism within fascism, as opposed to much more so than when you get with socialism. And I'm not going to try to go into explaining syndicalism now, but you get, but sort of corporate bodies. So you'll get, let's say, the idea of the union of shoemakers, and they'll go in and go, okay, you're employing 20 people making shoes. You make 2,000 pairs of shoes a year. Don't make any more. Don't make any less. That's how many you make. And over here, this other, and allocate out production, which that's the idea of fascism, is my understanding. Where Hitler's National Socialism is a competitive market practice. Sure, you can look at something like the railways with the Reichsbahn, and it functionally being nationalized, and functionally being state controlled, and setting fares for train fares that may have no relationship to the actual cost of moving the people around. It's just like, no, we're going to make it cheap, and we're going to schedule the trains to go here and here and here based upon centralized planning. Well, that's because, unlike roads, you got to move everything in. You can't have trains fighting for who gets to go first, kind of thing, if you know what I mean. Where, which is counter to the ideology. Hitler, and this is getting into Konstantin van der Roth here in just a moment, but Hitler ideologically likes competition. He wants to have the companies to compete with each other. He does not want, say, one giant shoe manufacturing company. He wants to have multiple ones, and he wants them to compete. And you go, that might sound like capitalism, and Hitler's not a capitalist. He's an anti-capitalist. You're absolutely right. See, what Hitler wants to do is have these shoe companies compete. And whether they're competing on style, styling, color, whatever, I don't know, comfort or construction, techniques of the shoe, or say, manufacturing techniques, a new shoemaking machine that makes them cheaper, faster, better. Or competing on all of these fronts. He wants that competition. Hitler is a Darwinist. Okay. Yes, he maybe not so much a Darwinist. I don't know how much of a Darwinist in Darwin, origin of species, and in a biological sense, but he is definitely he sees nations and groups of people as struggle, struggling with each other as sort of social Darwinism, very much so. And the strongest peoples, culture, group, whatever, nation, country, they will survive and the weak will fail. He is very much that kind of Darwinistic viewpoint. He sees the competition between humanities groups as very Darwinistic, and so he to keep that strong both, between, he doesn't want to see Germany ever too long at peace or ever too long too secure to get, fat and happy and weak. He wants to keep it, periodically battling, periodically at competition. And so he sees the economic center as that. But what he sees in capitalism is what a Marxist sees in when they say capitalist or capitalism, they'll use. And that is, if you will, and sort of mentioned it before, the idea of an ownership class. Not when Adam Smith talks about capitalism as in market forces and competition. They see it as sort of, because it's often been practiced in Germany, as sort of state capitalism, is the idea that somebody, often, having previous wealth, gets preferential treatment, gets a monopoly or gets a tax break or gets to sell your company will sell all the guns to Bavaria, all the rifles or something like that. And it won't be a competitive kinds of things. So he sees this view of capitalism as exploitive, okay? Exploiting the state when they sell stuff, exploiting the worker when, try to get the cheapest, he sees capitalism as you're only going to pay those worker as much as you have to, is the idea. So if you can go, oh, hey, yeah, there's a lot of unemployment, we're going to cut all your wages in half. You don't want to work here, you can leave. We got other people that are starving on the street that'll come for the job. So we'll cut your wages in half. See, this is where he is socialistic, Hitler is, in that he wants to set minimum wages. Now, we can say, well, are minimum wages inherently socialistic? Not necessarily. But once you start talking about a quote-unquote living minimum wage, then they become so. To talk to about modern American politics, don't know about other parts of the world, but modern American politics, every single state there's both a federal minimum wage, which is pretty low, but every single state has its own minimum wage, and places like New York City have its even higher than New York State's minimum wage. And the idea that is that, everybody should make, $10 an hour or whatever minimum. It's going up and up and up, and I don't know. And it varies from state to state. I don't know. But everybody should make $10 an hour. And what that is supposed to do is to keep them from going to the bottom of the barrel. You're going back to explaining, to exploit people. Like, you got unemployment, you got people unemployed. Well, we'll just keep cutting your wages down until we can't get people to here, just constantly move it down. Now, in America, the big problem is that we have an underclass here of large amounts of illegal aliens that can't legally work. So they either just fake or phony up ID cards or work for people under the table and willing to work for under the minimum wage. Okay, that's a key element. A lot of the gardeners or whatever that work around the Los Angeles area, a lot of those workers work for less than minimum wage. So you have unemployment for American citizens because they can't find a minimum wage job because there's not enough of them, because a bunch of people, including sometimes large employers, and whether they're factories or other things, will get a lot of people to work for less than minimum wage. There's schemes to sort of handle this stuff. A lot of times they'll own the like office buildings here, and you can picture there's a lot of office buildings or common areas in apartment buildings, the hallways and whatnot. The corporation will own that building, and then they'll hire a smaller business to provide the labor. So they're not actively employing the cleaning personnel or the maintenance personnel or whatever it is. They employ the small company. And that small company is the one that does the illegal shit. They you know do phony or not look into people's when they give social security numbers that are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, kind of BS, a little more creative than that maybe, but BS social security numbers and whatnot. And then whatever they're reporting officially on their books, they're paying the people less, and they're fly by night, meaning if they start getting looked at, and they're there for years, they're not like there for days or weeks. But the big company that could be sued, oh, we didn't know that they were underpaying their staff. We didn't know any of this was going wrong. So they use these other fly-by-night companies that can disappear, though the employees, the ownership disappears, and revamps itself under a different thing a few weeks later if it starts getting too things. So the idea of having some sort of floor, because somebody, a minimum wage doesn't need to be a living wage, because what the hell is a living wage anyways? Is that a living wage to have a single person working and house and feed and clothe a 4-person family? Or is that a single person renting out a small room in a multi-room apartment, kind of thing? And still being able to eat, and is he just taking care of himself? What is a minimum living wage? So just the idea of having a floor of wage level is not a socialistic plan, because but so Hitler does not want the worker exploited, so they're going to do minimum wages, but he also doesn't want the customer exploited either on the other end. So within Hitler's idea, yeah, okay, there's going to maybe be a few top high-end fashion whatever companies, but most shoemakers are not going to be able to exploit their workers or exploit their customers. Meaning, if there is a scarcity of shoe, they can't raise their prices, without getting in trouble. And so, it's a price control. Ultimately, price controls. Now, if the leather for the shoes and the work labor goes up, yeah, the prices can go up, but they can't the profit level. So this is where he sees Hitler talking about sees capitalism as exploitive. He likes the competitive part that would be in Adam Smith's capitalism, but he doesn't like the exploitation part of it. So that is where it is. My understanding is fundamentally different than fascism, as Hitler wants that competition, wants the companies competing against themselves or in each other. And where fascism would go, oh yeah, whether it's shoes, boots, whatever, or whatever sort of market kind of segment, yeah, hey, whatever. And when it gets to something that within fascism that may be a luxury, let's go perfume or something like that, well, so long as you're not exploiting your workers, if we're not French, so we know we can bathe. We're the French. They got to use the perfume because they don't bathe. But we're Italian, so perfume's a luxury. It isn't a requirement, say. I'm just using this as a hypothetical. So that's where you can maybe get, but you can't be exploitative in the sense of you can't try to, pay less than a certain level for your workers and whatnot. But there may not be, production limits or resource limits because it's a luxury good item. So that is sort of the idea of planned economy versus competitive economy. Now, to get to this, and now over time through Hitler's regime, starting in 1933 when he's there as chancellor, he has a vice chancellor under him, which there's normally, or most of the time there under the Weimar, there is not a vice chancellor, but Franz von Papen, who had been a previous chancellor, comes in as the vice chancellor, and there's obviously President Hindenburg on top of him and other competitive parties in the Reichstag. From that point on through to 1945, things change. And one of the things is going on is the idea that the NSDAP, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, and the government start out as two different things. Throughout the whole period of time, and it's never 100% complete in every field, but over time, the idea of those two are merging. Hey, folk, how you doing? So, since illegal aliens account for 4% of the U.S. population, their share in the workforce is too small to influence market wages. Absolutely not. I disagree with that. They influence market wages a lot. They influence here in LA area. There is a large amount of illegal aliens living here, so they drive housing costs up. With housing costs going up, they for everybody else has to pay higher levels of rent, so they need more money. So to be able to work here, you have to earn more money. So it's affecting the market wage. The in LA area, there had been just mentioning office cleaning staff had been in the, I think, 1960s and before here had primarily been done by black workers and often black women. These are the cleaning staff that often come in, after hours into the buildings and clean, so they're often unseen. Well, they get pushed out of that market because, like I say, companies are willing to hire illegal aliens and that are willing to work for less. So they drive down. So the black American labor, who has a Social Security card and who's doing everything right, is being undercut by somebody who is being worked later. So it gets to where most, and I know this from several, major companies that at least one of them I had worked at, others I just knew, that they hired, well, one of the companies they hired was Sunrise. Mexicans, basically, that didn't speak English. One of them, we found out eventually, he was showing up in a nice pickup truck. We heard some noises there, and we heard some noises. Eventually found out he was also running a cockfighting ring, which is illegal because he had cockerels, male chickens that train to fight. So, and he gets fired, but it's this other company. So instead of this large mega corporation in America hiring its own cleaning staff, I worked specifically for the company. I don't want to name the company right offhand. They hired out. Oh, and I'll say that it was for a major grocery company, and I was part of the night crew that was employed by the grocery company to stock the shelves at night. The cleaning person, sometimes it was a man and sometimes it was a woman, always Mexican, always did not speak English. Now, where I work, there's often Mexican Americans or Mexican immigrants who have become American citizens that speak Spanish. So if I needed anything, I could maybe go, clean up over here or something and walk the guy over and sees what's going on, figures it out. But he can't even do that. And so this company was only hiring Mexicans, and I do believe for less than what they were hiring their other direct employee, less than they would pay their other direct employees. I don't have evidence directly of to what the different people were being paid, but less than they were paying the night crew that worked for the company directly, the grocery company. So it was a subcontract deal. So they bring down those wages. So I'm disagreeing with you that they affect the market wage. They keep the floor down low, and if not at the bottom of minimum legal, often below legal wages. If we did not have that extra supply, we would have much more of the case of people, harder to employ people. So I disagree with you, folk. I like you, folk, and as you know, but I'm just disagreeing here. Thank you for taking a deep dive in the new updated mod. Thanks, Brian. I know we've gotten a bit off track here, but that's what happens here. For those of lower paid jobs are important for students to pay their way through university. Well, it could be a student. It could be a one of I think we've gotten to the point that we've learned that by having both, it does not benefit society to have, if you're presuming a couple raises a family, to have both of those couple working in the general workforce, because we have seen that we have went from, say, the 1970s, shall we say. There's always, during World War II, after World War II, like in the 50s, into the 60s, into the 70s, there's always been women in the workforce. But the idea that women have been encouraged to be a career in the workforce, not just at different points in their life being in the workforce, but encourage them to be full-time in the workforce through their, even through having children, take, time off for certain points of that having that there in the workforce, the family household income has not significantly, in a practical buying sense, I'm not talking about how much they made and what, if you look at the price of housing, you look at the price of automobiles, and you look at all that stuff, it's gone up. In actual buying effect, it does not help the family to have a larger, the workforce out there in the work, in the larger number of people in the workforce, because it drives down wages. That's part of it. Now that's a bigger chunk than maybe the illegal aliens. But you can have the idea of part-timers, whether they're women or students or retired people or other people like that would be willing to work. You want minimum wage, but being able to work less than somebody who is fully needing to support themselves entirely, because they do, say, older people, they have Social Security, or they, if they're a woman who maybe had raised a family and they're now adults, well, she's going to go maybe part-time to get a job, but there is a husband, and not that they're, and so not every job needs to be fully independent supportive. So there is other people that need to be. Now hello, Dutov Devlich, and hopefully I'm saying population greatly affects cost of housing, numbers of kids in school, cost of public services, lots of illegal construction workers as well. Absolutely. There's a lot of that stuff going on. And I don't know the percentage reported. I don't know what it really is because I don't trust, not that I'm saying the government is lying. I just don't know that they're monitoring things well and or lying. So even if it's just, let's do a round sort, I know it's an odd number, I'm going to give you a round number, 5% of the workforce, 5% of the workforce can keep a fair amount of wages down. So yeah, it's important. Whether you are a modern day socialist or a modern day, in America, I'm talking about modern day socialist, a modern day social welfarist, two different things, or a libertarian who just wants, hey, market decides everything, on that extreme. Having unfettered border controls that allow in any significant number of illegal aliens is a negative thing. Now we can say, and that's not saying that you don't want to allow in legal immigrants, because then you determine how many you want, how many you want a year, and their conditions, and what they're, how many are coming in, and you can judge that. So that's, purely, just purely on the legal sense, but, and, there's various reasons these different groups that want to have the illegal aliens coming in, but that does affect it. So getting back to the National Socialists and Germany at this point. So, like I was saying, over time, the merging of the party and the government. Now, Hitler wants them to to eventually be the same thing. But you see things like the DAF, the Deutsches Arbeiters Front, the German Workers' Front, basically a labor union. You also have things like the RAD, the Reich Arbeiters Dienst, the German Labor Service. And you also have something like Organization Todt, and it grows over time, and that's also a party organization that does construction and other labor type stuff. The DAF doesn't so much have, it does have direct employees, but it doesn't so much run projects themselves, but it has a lot of influence over businesses and things. But it doesn't, if you're, and the way Germany is set up, ideally, the war changes things, is, you're in the Hitler Youth, and then, like, I don't know, at 16 or whatever, 17 or something like that, you leave the Hitler Youth, you go into the RAD, the Labor Front. And they're both in the Hitler Youth and the RAD. You do get some military-like training, but you go through from being, indoctrination, Boy Scout type indoctrination, but, heavy indoctrination, but Boy Scout type activity training, as well as indoctrination group, to continued indoctrination, to doing some, physical labor. And then you go into the, you go into the military, and then you get out of the military and you continue with your civilian work life. And then obviously the war interrupts all of this, but that's the idea. But there is no DAF person, DAF political commissar involved with the RAD, meaning they're two different organizations. They don't speak to each other, if you will. So there is, working conditions, how many hours a day that the DAF can have influences in a factory. Well, that doesn't affect in the RAD, or doesn't affect in Organization Todt. So if you have Organization Todt building something, there's no DAF representative running around saying, oh, you can only work 8 hours in a day or whatever. So he wants competing organizations that have some levels of overlap. He doesn't want just a single, labor type allocation service. So this way they can look at as, well, how is the RAD doing? How is Organization Tote doing? How is the DAF doing? In figuring out labor needs. Because the DAF can deal with farm labor or construction labor. RAD does some construction and some farm labor, and the Organization Tote only really does construction labor, not industrial, working in the factory. So there's these overlaps. So Hitler wants these competing organizations. He doesn't want a single organization. That's also a fundamental difference with the fascist sort of government. To get onto this, prior to Hitler's coming to power in 1933, but continuing after 1933, there is both a NSDAP party, the party, Ausland organization, foreign land, if you will, organization that has its own foreign policy. And the person who is in charge of that is Joachim von Ribbentrop. So he is running the party's foreign relation, while Konstantin van der Rohe is running the German government's foreign relations. Now, it even gets a little more muddy, and that eventually, while Joachim von Ribbentrop is still in charge of the party's foreign relations, he is also made ambassador to England and does a terrible job. How goes the war effort? Well, we're still war in Spain is sort of not going very great, and we're mostly doing production. So you get these competing organizations. Now, a bit more officially, the NSDAP Ausland organization is really sort of not supposed to be running a national, for the German state, foreign relations, diplomatic relations. They're more supposed to be running relations with German citizens living overseas. But it's really not limited to that. And so they're competing. Now, the way Ribbentrop is a personal friend of Hitler. Hitler likes Ribbentrop. One of the things he likes with Ribbentrop is that, let's just say I'm just going to use this as a hypothetical. Not that this is real, but just as a hypothetical. Hitler might say, oh, we should lock up all the communists or something. And, sitting around the dinner table or the lunch table or whatever. And Joachim von Ribbentrop would say something, you're wrong, mein Führer. We should shoot them all. Always taking a position a little more extreme than Hitler would. And Hitler likes this because no, Joachim, we gotta lock up the communists. Shooting them all, that'll cause too many problems. And then Joachim would go, okay, but we really, if we could get away with it, we should shoot them all. So he comes off as a hardcore Nazi, taking a position just one step a bit further than Hitler's positions. Where Konstantin von der Rohe is not a close associate of Hitler's. It does meet with him periodically as needed, but he's always cautioning about over extreme. actions. I'll take the lesser. Don't rock the boat too much. Yes, we got to rebuild this, but yes, we got to get the Sudeten land back. Sure, but let's not go too hard, Hitler. So Hitler sees these two as competing personalities, and this is why he's picking Ribbentrop, because Ribbentrop is going hardcore. I know it got there and got me off topic. So yes, we could not spend the political power, but we're going to do this. So we're going to get that done. So that sets up this. And we can look here. We now have Ribbentrop here as foreign minister, loyalist. We now have Brauhitsch in charge of supreme commander of the German armed forces. We're not going to put in Hitler. And we have lost under German theater here. We have lost our commander without a reasonable replacement. So I hope that history lesson was interesting, as well as our experience, very good, as well as a look at what National Socialism is. The Italians, we're attacking with the Italians here. We got new, better aircraft designs. Let's go for new heavy fighters. Okay, returning countrymen, whatever. Signal company, good. Let's see, what else can we research with this slot here? Can't actually do radios here. It would be nice. 37, we got the unit. Infantry equipment, let's see, 37, 38. Well, let's do anti-tank rifles. Okay, well, we got another engine plant, which we're going to do other things there. Okay, another power plant. Let's do 2 more in order. Let's update to the better Arado, I believe better. Fighter or naval bomber. Okay, we got 5 factories doing radios. We're trying to catch up or massively produce radios. Okay, let's look at our plane production. I'm going to let these maybe go for a little while more, because we're currently producing 2.5 a week. 1.5 Heinkels a month. Almost 2 a month on Arados. And we don't have any tactical bombers, it looks like, in production, don't we? I thought we did. Oh, we have two Stukas here. Okay. So for just over one a week. We somehow skipped over that. Let's go with heavy fighters. There. Okay, so we're getting some heavy fighters now. 9 a year. Well, very good, Star Streak. I'm glad somebody did. I'm not saying other people didn't, but I don't know. This is... See, this is... you do this, and then I guess do this, and come back, and it's legible again. Okay, so we're down a little bit on aluminum. And I am very much... they're both correct, but they're two different words. It's two different... The British use aluminium. The Americans use aluminum. They're both, I think, a correct term for it. But we don't... well, we have enough bauxite here for this. But they're two different words with the same meaning. That's what I take it to be. They're on their own. Bulgaria. 2,000 units of carabiner. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, we'll do that. Appoint Funk. Let's look at this. Okay, we have Goring here. Jack had been engaged in a power struggle with Reich Marshal Hermann Goring, who wanted... Okay, well... Remove... Okay, so... Local power gain, factory output, civilian. Okay, factory construction speed. Make a phone. Okay. I'm going to make a save right here. F. Okay, what we are currently in year 2 of Goring's 4-year plan. Let's see what happens when we do this. Do we lose this? Maybe not. Okay. Well, I guess not. Well, I think we're going to end the episode, not the live stream, so everyone can hang out that's currently here. So I want to thank everyone again for their support. And if you're new around here again, if you made it this far, you better subscribe. So see you next time for more, yes, more Hearts of Iron.